for that. Long for me too. Can you talk about the conversations you had with Kenny Lawler in advance of free agency, and if you guys made an offer to him?
Yeah, this goes way back into December. Farrell and I started talking and kind of wrapping my head around what they were thinking and what we were thinking. And yeah, they were they had a number in mind and I had a number in mind, and it was they ended up getting the number, and it was it was above what we thought and above what we could do. And you know, similar to last time where it was it's good for Kenny and his family when someone, when you get that kind of contract offer, it's hard to turn it down, that's for sure.
What made you not want to hit the number that he eventually did get?
Well, it was just more, when you look at the totality of the receiver room for that type of number, um, would we be willing to go with, a couple other rookie contracts, which would what it come down to, or could we maybe spread it around? And that was the decision. It was a difficult decision because Kenny's an unbelievable football player and dynamic and great in the community and everything about him. But it was just, for that receiver room, it was just wasn't prepared to be able to do that, for that amount of money.
Thank
John, go ahead.
Thanks for doing this, Kyle.
Hey,
I wanted to ask you about the salary cap increase and the timing of that. When did you learn that the salary cap was increasing, and what are your thoughts on kind of how this has played out with the PA and the league and everything?
yeah, John, I'll tell you, it was an interesting one. I had like everybody, like when you guys found out when the PA released the statement about the cap, is when I did, and certainly was surprising and kind of caught most people off guard, I think. And or organizationally, we're just, we're operating as normal, though. I mean, as if nothing's changed, and until further notice, that's our plan, is to keep plugging along as we were.
So you're anticipating spending to the original cap of around 5.6 rather than the new cap of 6 and a little above?
Well, as I said, as of now, until further direction, as I said, there was some fairly confusing time during all of this, and I am not privy to those meetings or discussions. So until further notice, we're just going to operate to your point of the original cap, and wait and see what happens.
Thank you.
Go back to Derek Taylor, followed by Mike McIntyre.
with the time between when you found out and when the free agency between Tuesday, would it have been possible to pivot your strategy in that time and then spend more money?
Yeah, that was an interesting one because you're looking at the time with the way it is in this window that everybody had handshake agreements or verbal agreements, and there was a lot of uncertainty with, well, with the salary cap, and would agents and teams kind of rethink things and start over? And I think across the board, the answer is no. So I think most teams were thinking the same thing. You didn't see, of all the reported verbal agreements, I think all of them have been followed through, if I'm correct. So as I said, I think I can only speak for our team, but as I said, it certainly didn't change any of the strategies and planning prior to that. Instead, it was a rather confusing. And as I said, until we hear otherwise, we're just going to keep plugging along as it was prior to that.
I just wanted to run this by you. Is it possible to use the extra salary cap room to sort of expand your practice roster for the entire season, keep guys on one game as healthy scratches, use it that way, or is that somehow not allowed?
Yeah, Dare. I guess, if various teams can use the salary cap however they so choose. If you want to spend it all on your 45-man roster, you want to pay your practice roster guys, or I guess to your point, sorry, expand your one game injured budget. Yeah, I mean, once it's all sorted out, teams can strategize however they like.
Okay, there's nothing that would make that against the rules.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
Kyle, obviously with it not working out with Kenny, you had to pivot, and you signed three receivers on Tuesday. Just wondering what your take on the state of the receiving room right now is, and maybe start with Reggie White Jr., whose name certainly stands out as a pretty dynamic individual.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Desjardins, who comes over from Montreal, and Delorier, I apologize. Eric, he had a pretty good working knowledge of Reggie and remembered him from a couple years ago, and he was in the building and he'd recovered fully. And same thing, worth a shot of if he gets back to where he was. And Eric had seen him all last year and said he looked good. And that's if he can get back to where he was year one, I think a very interesting upside for Reggie.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, Dylan Mitchell, same thing. I mean, we signed guys that which we really hadn't done in the past, and across the board a little bit, where we've added some veteran guys that we think have big upsides that maybe are ready for some breakouts, and Dylan getting back to where he was and his first year, and then struggled a little bit his second year, and was back, and I think he's ready for a breakout, and Stearns out of Sask, I think same thing. So we've got a group of guys in that receiving room that are hungry and ready to kind of get back to where they were to break out. So it'll be an interesting competition for sure in that receiver group, and really, Dalton's plugging along, and he's working like we all knew he would, and we played pretty much all last year without Dalton, so you're getting him back is almost like a new guy as well. And so yeah, we're excited. As I said, it'll be a little different vibe in that receiver group, but a dynamic group and a bunch of different skill sets. And we anticipate it working out quite well for us.
And I just wondered, big picture, Kyle, how different was the approach this year, just almost on a personal level, where in the past, obviously, re-signing so many key core guys has been priority number one, and you haven't had to go maybe shopping as extensively as you did this time around. Did it take on a different feel this year, where because of some of the decisions you had to make?
Yeah, much different this year, where we added a few new bodies to the building, and we were looking for maybe not the big free agent dollar value splash where we've had to use in the past to re-sign our own guys, kind of spread it out and add pieces that we thought, we hope work out, that were a little bit more cost effective and, provide a little more depth with CFL experience than in years past, where we would sign by the time we got our own guys signed, there was nothing left and we'd have to fill it with first year players. So that was, again, you're right, a little bit different this year with the strategy. And we've added a few new bodies with CFL experience, more so than we have in the past, for sure.
Just one last one from me, but on a personal level, like, you get so attached, obviously, to these players, guys like Kenny and Adam, who've been such a huge part of everything you've accomplished. How difficult is it? I mean, it's a business, obviously, but there's a personal element that must creep into it. And so just what's that like for you and for the whole management team to have to make those tough decisions and in some cases not bring back guys who have meant so much?
Yeah, that is a challenging part of the job. I think the way we're set up here, it's more, it's tougher on Mike, because the way we're set up, I mean, Mike handles, we all know, Mike builds strong relationships with the players. And one of the reasons we've been so successful is the relationship that he's built. So, I've tried to take a step back, and I deal with more of the agents. And of course, I mean, Kenny's, Adam, they're great guys. They're around football community, and I see them all the time. So it is difficult, but from a business standpoint, I do try to take a step back and handle those type of decisions from a business end, and as difficult as it is, try to remove the personal from that as best I can.
Go back to John Hodge, followed by Derek Taylor.
Kyle, can you take us through the negotiations with Liam and Tyrell? Obviously, two high-level Canadian starters, you weren't able to keep. Did you feel you were close to keeping both of them? And how did those negotiations go?
Yeah, John, it was, I think with Tyrell, it was evident we put an offer in and thought it was decent, but the deciding factor, I think, with Tyrell and his agent was honest, and his goal was to go play with his brother, and if Edmonton was able to figure out a way to make it work financially, that was his choice, and we knew that, or we saw that coming, I guess. So not much of a surprise. And again, Liam, it's the same thing, where we had an offer for Liam and thought it was a fair offer. And, you know, he got again, it's the same thing I say to Kenny. It was when a team comes in with a number that like that, it's great for Liam, it's great for his family. And that's just, part of free agency, that things like, things like that happen. And, we were in that position. It's just business. And, teams thought the same thing of us when we were signing Stanley and Medlock and guys like that a few years ago, that probably didn't align with what their current teams thought. And it just is what it is. That's one of we talk about the frustration of 1 year contracts in the CFL for building continuity. But on the other side, that if you're a team that hasn't had the success that maybe your fan base wanted, you can kind of flip things around fairly quickly with your roster. And I think that's what you're seeing. And that is good for those organizations that have the ability to do that and get some really good talent.
For a lot of years, this brain trust of you and Ted, Danny, Cyril was together. Obviously, Ted now in Hamilton. A lot of guys that you guys lost followed him to Hamilton. I'm curious with the brain trust, changing obviously with Ted and Cyril moving to Hamilton. Do you feel like that maybe played a role in losing some of those guys to the Tiger Cats and the familiarity that they have with Ted and Cyril?
I think the other way around. I think the familiarity with Ted would have with some of the players, like from a scouting standpoint, there is a comfort level. He obviously has a intimate working knowledge with the players in this organization that have been here so long. So I think it's as much of Ted understood the players and more so than other teams, and there was a comfort level for sure with the Bombers that have now have joined the Ticats.
Last one for me. Simple question. Do you feel like you're a better team now than you were before free agency? Like you were a lot more active this year than as you kind of mentioned than in previous years. Do you feel like you're better right now in 2025 than you were in 24?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we've got a plan, John. And when you look at, I think we've added some pieces on defense. I think we've got more experience. Obviously, losing Terrell is tough. He was an all-star, but we're confident in the scouting department that we'll be able to find an American DB to come in and play corner. That's obviously priority number one. I think with Tony Jones, the way he played, and adding Jonathan Jones gives us Kyrie. We've got some depth that we've had at linebacker that we haven't had. Cam Lawson being healthy and ready for camp was somebody that we didn't have last year. That's almost like a new piece, and we wanted an experienced end to go opposite of Willie, and James brings that. So it's I think defensively we're a little bit deeper. I mean, whether we're better or not, I guess we'll see. And offensively, we've got, as I said, we're bringing back Dalton. Dalton didn't play last year, so that's like a new addition. And Brady's back, so we've got some talent. As I said, time will tell. Adding Peyton Logan is an interesting piece. We know we had a bunch of different returners back there trying things. I think he brings some consistency back there and some proven success. So it was a different year. Like, rather than just going after and signing our high end, our starters back and paying and then filling the rest with rookies. I think it'll be a more competitive camp with guys that have played in the CFL. So only time will tell, but I do like our roster.
Thanks.
Derek, go ahead.
Cal, as you head toward camp, what do you feel like your options are at left guard?
Well, we've got some versatility there now with Patty and Chris and Tui and Gabe all back from the Canadian standpoint. Gabe has shown very well. We've, Kendall Randolph has played, Micah. So with our ratio flexibility, if the option to play three Americans on the old line is something we've talked about. So it'll be an interesting training camp again for, with the spirit of what we're saying here, where there'll be some more competition, and we'll have some ratio flexibility of what we want to do at various positions and how we want to go. But that is certainly something we talked about of, Gabe's going to get an opportunity to show what he can do. And we'll have Americans on the interior for the first time, competing. And, we'll, said I keep saying the same thing. It's a different training camp this year, that there will be a few more spots to be contested amongst, some guys with CFL experience, and the O-line's no different.
And as far as replacing Tyrell Ford at the corner, you mentioned bringing in some guys, Jamal Parker potentially in that mix, or do you see him somewhere else?
Yeah, Jamal's more of an interior guy. He'll get a chance. I mean, JY likes the two halfbacks, the free safety and the dime to kind of be interchangeable, and he fits into that skill set. Terrell Bonds did a great job as a first year corner, and we've of the positions I believe that you can fill with somebody with maybe not a bunch of CFL experience. Corner's one of the ones that we're comfortable with going into training camp and saying, all right, let's have a look at all these young guys and see who can go in and compete and win the job, just like Terrell did last year. Bonds.
Thank you.
Ed Tate, followed by Freezer.
Hey, Kyle. You've rattled off a lot of the names here already. I'm just going to try to fill in some of the blanks. Maybe you could give us a comment on Shea Patterson, Gavin Cobb, Brock Gowanlock.
Sure. Shea was we wanted to add a quarterback with some experience to throw in there. You saw Strevs put it perfectly. Like, let's go. Let's have a competition. Shea's the same way. Let's go. We're going to have legitimate battle in there for quarterback reps, and he's all gung ho for it. Has some CFL experience, had some varying levels of success, and coming in and being able to get some reps in training camp and compete. Gavin, same thing, a veteran guy, has some return ability. Him and Brock, Bison kids pumped to come back. Just adding some of that Canadian depth with some of the injuries that we had with our Canadians, depth-wise at the end of the year, that we wanted to add some guys with some CFL experience and let them come in and combine with some of the draft picks that we're going to have to add some depth and have those guys compete for their spots on the team, the practice roster, however it shakes down.
You mentioned you've touched an awful lot already on the salary cap and the late addition to it. There's a notion out there that in a year that the team's hosting the Grey Cup, teams just sort of spend like crazy because you're the host and you want to be in the game in your backyard. How come the club did not do that?
I don't know that we operate any differently. I mean, I think it was blown out of proportion last year when BC, the signings that they had and all the rumors coming out of there from a cap standpoint. But I don't think that's happened in the past. When you like I think it's a one-off. So the idea that was it Sask and Hamilton in years prior to that were dramatically over the cap because they were hosting the Grey Cup game, I think is false. I don't think that's happened. And I've said this before, I think you're doing your team a disservice, or organizationally, where you have to answer to the players and coaches and say, well, this year we're really going to try hard to win the Grey Cup because it's in Winnipeg. It's illogical from a spending standpoint, because the reaction from everybody would be, well, why wouldn't we do that every year then? If we have the means to do it this year, we should do it every year. So as I said, we're operating as normal, and we've been able to put some successful teams together the last few years and compete in the Grey Cup, and that's the expectation level again this year.
Paul, go ahead.
So have you spent, or will you spend that extra 400,000 plus?
Well, as I said earlier, we're, until further notice, we're operating as prior to that, Paul. So
I thought the notice had been sent.
Yeah. Fraser, I think we've addressed this already. So
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just, Paul,
Okay.
I'm operating as prior to that notice being
Prior to
sent.
that. Okay.
Prior to being that, nothing's changed.
Okay.
It's status quo until further notice.
Okay. And I do apologize for missing the start. At the risk of one last repeat, did you circle back to any? I guess you wouldn't then. The answer probably is no, you did not circle back given this new salary cap increase. You did not circle back and revisit some negotiations that had already happened.
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry. All right. 5 QBs in camp then? Is that you want to, is that the way you want to go?
Yeah, that we were, we had that. We just had a call actually to discuss that. Yeah, we were 5 last year with the youth sport guy. So yeah, we'll, distribute some reps, and 5's a decent number, I think, for some competition.
I don't know if you've had 5 with experience this much before. That's might be unusual.
Yeah, yep. As I said, it's kind of the theme of this call has been where, in certain more so than in years past, we're having guys with CFL experience kind of compete for roles on the team this year than in years past where we just haven't been able to do that. And, we've just had to plug in rookies more from a salary standpoint than anything else.
Right. Which loss stings the most?
Well, I mean, losing all the guys hurts. I mean, it's never nothing. I just look at it as a business, Paul. I don't think that it stings. I think, losing two Canadian starters with Liam and Terrell, obviously from a ratio standpoint, makes you is a challenge. But no, it's just, the leadership of Big E. I mean, all of this stuff. I mean, it's tough, but it's a whole new team, and we'll start fresh and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's a lot of them honestly weren't totally unexpected. So the idea of we were totally off guard by this, like you had heard the numbers and kind of saw that this could be potentially coming. So,
Okay, thank you.
Back to John Hodge.
Hey, Kyle. You've got a couple of more pending free agents, guys who I guess are now free agents. Brandon Alexander, Johnny Augustine, a few have been here. Are there any guys who have hit the market who you anticipate bringing back, or have all the guys that are currently free going to remain free?
yeah, that's up in the air. Like most of the guys have been told, explore the free agent market and see what you can get elsewhere. And it's now, I think what you're going to see over the next few days and into the week is the teams or players and teams maybe kicking the tires on some value guys and where do these players want to go. So those guys will kind of do the same thing. Their agents will call around and see what happens. So never know.
Let's give you the next question. Do you anticipate like you're done in the free agent market? You're not bringing anybody else in, or are you still looking to maybe add a value piece or two?
Yeah, that's exactly, that's what we're doing. We're going through the lists now and trying to see if we can find maybe some guys that we like that maybe are that we can add for a decent value and add. So we're still looking.
Thanks.
Derek, go ahead.
As far as right now, options for depth behind Willie Jefferson and James Vaughters, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, we had Jay Person and Brandon Wright last year at PR expansion, and they, we liked the way they played, and we brought them back. So we like them. Again, the scouting department, when we talked through, we talked about training camp numbers, and that was one where we're going to find some young guys, and they're going to go in there, and we'll find some first year players on first year salaries to go in there and compete and see who's the next pass rusher in the building.
And Michael Chris Ike, what's his future? Is he a running back? Does he have potential to take running back carries? Is he a fullback, a tight end? What do you feel like he is in the CFL?
Yeah, he's an interesting piece. We talked about that. Is that we like him as a tailback fullback combo. So he'll be, and you've seen the bigger tailbacks like that in the CFL that they can play some fullback, they can be a get you out of the game tailback. So yeah, we like his versatility and we like his ability to play some fullback, play some special teams, but also take some reps as a tailback as well. So a nice valuable piece for us.
Thank
you. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I had just one more, Kyle. Last couple of years, this roster had so much flexibility with the ratio by starting 8 guys. Can you still get those snaps back, or how do you kind of maneuver around that now, especially with Terrell leaving?
Yeah, we're good, Ed, with our 7, and that's certainly a big discussion point of what's the ratio flexibility? Where do we go from that? And we talked through that, and the good thing about JY and the defense, that they're cool with playing 10 Canadians if you tell them to. They're like they'll make it work, and with so much packaging that they do, they can be pretty versatile with how many Canadians. And with the old, as we talked about, there's some is there Canadians on the O line versus Americans. So yeah, those are all. It is a little that's the biggest challenge compared to years past, where we would start training camp and say we got 8 Canadian starters, or 7, at least 7. We locked in with the 8th. If something happens, here's our plan. This year, we're quite comfortable with our 7 Canadian starters. And now it's just to figure out, okay, if something happens, where's our 8th, or what's plan B? and plan C. So that's what we're working through. And that is, as I said, this will be for the first year a little bit interesting of a discussion / challenge than years past. But
Thank you.
good for the draft picks. As I said, we'll we got a bunch more draft picks, and those kids will get a chance to come in and compete and earn some playing time.
Back to Derek.
Kyle, from the fans' perspective, from our perspective, it feels like you've lost guys who were great locker room guys that we think of as great locker room guys. Is that something you can address in free agency, or does it happen at another time?
No, I think you rely on, that's a challenging one to, obviously do your research and you want good guys, but from a leadership standpoint, I mean, you rely on the guys that are in here and you look at, Zach's a leader and Patty and Stan. So we've got a good core group. Jake Thomas is back. I mean, Willie is the ultimate leader on this team, and Dietrich has grown into quite a leader in the back end. So we're, Sergio's a leader. I mean, which is rare to hear from a kicker, but you know what I mean? He's a likable guy, and we do have such still a veteran team, and yes, we've lost some great leadership qualities, but we still have a good group, and it's it's next for some of the younger guys to step up and take on more of a leadership role for the guys that have left.